So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. And today is Monday, February the 7th, 2022. And their call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. And we'll give Michael a moment to get dialed in. I'll invite you to go to the website, Susan, not Susan Bingham, but Susan at that hosts our website on her server is assisting me in making a few more changes. So be sure to go out and look around, and if you see something that's not working, let me know, and I appreciate you being here. This is, for us, Valentine's week. I know Valentine's not till next Monday, but we have Aria today, and then her dad's off tomorrow, and then it's the other grandparents' turn for the rest of the week. So this afternoon, we're making Valentine's with Aria, and it's given us the opportunity to explain to her that, you know, we are all love. And this is just a day that's set aside where we share our love with other people and embrace them. And we're making Valentines with little hands and feet prints and paint when she gets up from her nap. So it's going to be a fun afternoon. And then we'll be meeting with my brother and going to visit. Are you on? Michael says, give him just a minute. So, and then we'll be... my brother is in. He's going to visit him with Dad today, and then we're meeting him for dinner tonight. So it'd be a good time to get back together with him. I don't get to see him very often. And so just hold the space. We did go to visit my dad last night, and mentally he just wasn't quite there again. I'm not sure what's happened because we had felt real positive the last few days. It felt like he was cognitively back with us, and then last night it felt like he was not. So just hold the space as we move through this. And I was able to speak with someone this morning and share with her. She was totally amazed. She was actually a medical physician and was doing an annual review as far as insurance goes and checking to see what medications, if any, that I was taking, what supplements, and she was amazed at the number of years I'd been around the sun that I wasn't taking a whole lot of medications. That the only one I was taking was a bioidentical hormone because of having had a total hysterectomy back many years ago before I knew that you could do anything different. And she was just like, well, how are you doing all this? And I explained to her that, you know, even with COVID, that there were upgrades in health thanks to COVID. My blood pressure and my blood sugar are both better, and Dad's had a couple cancers fall off after he had COVID, and my younger brother, he actually said that he had a place on his neck that had fallen off after having COVID. So it's like, you know, if you look, it was a terrible experience. I wouldn't want to go through it again. However, you know, look for the opportunities with everything that we face and look for the blessings that are behind it. Sometimes that's challenging to see when you're right in the middle of it. But anyway, I think Michael's having a challenge with his phone, so I'll just invite you, if you have a question or a comment, 563-999-3581 and press 1. And we can chat until he gets on. If you haven't uploaded or downloaded the app and upgraded to the newest changes, please do so. We've made a lot of changes to it. And put it to work and see how it works for you. You can ask questions directly from any page within the app. Welcome, Michael.
Well, thank you, dear heart. Welcome, everybody. Delighted and honored that you're here as we carry forward this conversation. And as we're saying, Jeanie, the shifts for you, for myself, for Dad, for your brother, from COVID have been quite profound. And there's a friend who's a physician in Florida that I spoke to yesterday, and I was sharing some of that, and he had COVID really, really severely back, 3 months or so ago. Like, he actually said to me at one point, I thought I was going to die. And he said, I'm in better health now than I've ever been. And I think that one of the things that happens with COVID, and how do these energies get into the structure? COVID, virus, when they talk about killing a virus, you can't kill a virus because a virus isn't alive. Something that doesn't reproduce, something that doesn't metabolize, all kinds of things that don't happen where there's life don't happen with a virus. And so something alive is a packet of information, and there has to be something for it to attach to it if it's having destructive effects. I'm not so sure that it's even the virus that's having, quote unquote, the destructive effects. My suggestion is, or my suspicion is, and I'm just kind of formulating this from observing it and taking my understanding to the next level, is that this pattern attaches where there are energetic patterns that match it. And my best understanding of a virus is that it's just actually a fragment of genetic information. And what I've been finding and talking to people is that it has resonated or moved in them some of their most uncomfortable, their darkest, their deepest, their most deeply hidden expressions of thoughts, their feelings. And so they get lost in darkness. And if something arouses those things we've been, that we've packed away and dissociated from, and enough of them are moving, the toxic effects could be deadly. No question about it. And if you're going to be conscious and if you're processing what comes up, if you've got the tools, instead of being locked into the trauma that's being resonated by the presence of this energetic pattern, and you're processing through it, then what happens on the other side is you can expect to be healthier. And that seems to be what's happening. It's not a conversation we're hearing much of in the culture, but I'm not sure it's something that many people are conscious of at this point, but interesting process. And we're here to engage in an understanding of health that goes beyond the norm, and the healing process, which, as we've said over and over again, is not Dr. Feelgood. But when we are in a state of willingness, and when we stand ready to do our work and things resonate or move, whether it's the result of, or appears to be the result of some invader or an internal condition, or, somebody comes to visit that resonates what you don't want to look at. We've talked before about the purpose of children. And the purpose of a child is to have your unconscious mind hang out in true living color and Dolby sound, and everything you've never dealt with, they're going to tend to bring up. They're going to tend to resonate. And if one's doing their work, then relationship moves forward, relationship with children. If not, they end up with terrible 2s, terrible 3s, 4s, 5s, terrible teenagers. Oh, look at what those teenagers are going through. How they're just in their teen years. Well, that's not natural. It's become the norm. It's not natural. But when we refuse to deal with the mind energy, with the energetic dynamics of the generations, you look at that scriptural quote that says, "Look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth." So children become expert at arousing in the fathers, and mothers, of course, everything that's never been dealt with. And if those fathers and mothers move into some form of hostility or intimidation, instead of disciplining the child, discipline, remember, means properly taught, not properly beat up. The world's made up a different definition of the word discipline so everybody can feel good about beating on their kids. They think spare the rod, spoil the child means you got to use that stick to beat them. But actually the rod was something you leaned on and got assistance from. It wasn't a beating stick. And when you lean on understanding, if you lean on and you're disciplined, if you're properly taught, it comes from the word disciple. Then when those things which are less than love start to move in and around you, it may not always be easy, and you may fail at it over and over and over and over again to keep love present within your field when those things are going on. But as you keep moving towards standing as a space of love, then you move away from the symptomatic conditions for which most people are taking 1, 2, 10, or 20 pills. You know, what is a drug? A drug is a disease disguised as a cure. Oh, Michael, that couldn't be. Look, our whole world is being kept healthy by drugs. Excuse me. Open a drug package. Unfold the little piece of paper in it and just count how many diseases are going to happen. And I say going to, by that I mean on some level, those disease energies are going to unfold in the body of the person taking them. Some, it's going to be tragically unfolded, and the side effects, so-called, might kill them. Others, they may be so mild as to not even be noticed, but the energetic patterns are there. If a drug were truly a healing substance, the only thing it would do would be to heal. There would be no insert that says this body part's going to break, fall off, this one's going to break, this, and this are possibly going to happen. When you have something that's truly linked to healing modality, then healing happens. And so why are so many people hooked on so many diseases disguised as cures? Well, there's a set of symptoms I don't like. Well, then deal with it. Well, I take this pill and then my symptoms go away, and then see it's fixed. Well, what happens if you stop taking that pill? Well, the symptoms come back, but also, do you think it was fixed in the first place? How silly is that? And that doesn't mean don't ever use a drug, because there's no question that a drug that shuts down certain symptomatic energies, which perhaps are life-threatening, might save someone's life. But saving someone's life who's standing at the edge of a cliff and not removing them from the edge of the cliff isn't healing. And you'll notice if the substance is causing the suppression to occur is removed, then the symptoms tend to reestablish themselves. What we're looking to do is to open this energy field and look at what's behind the disease processes we engage in, if we are engaging. And disease isn't some entity that's out to get us, like there's a disease out there. Look at the word and break it down. Dis-ease, a lack of ease. Hostility and fear are the major causes of disease. Held in tissue over extended periods of time, those dis-ease energies, locked down, shut down, drugged, become more and more and more virulent until they explode in a set of symptoms that can't be handled, and people die. Why? Because there's something in that field that does not support well-being. The major tool that was presented by what 2,000 years ago was the man that was called the Great Physician was that of forgiveness. How to address and how to remove those energetic patterns that never belonged in the first place. So forgiveness is about removal. Forgiveness isn't about letting somebody else off the hook if there's some sort of toxic energy moving in you. So remember that the perceptual mind is a reflection of the content of carbon-based memory. If there's a lot of hostility and rage and fear and pain and drama and trauma, perceptual world, then there is an energy locked in your tissue structure from the past that's made of that drama and trauma. That is what's called dis-ease. Taken to the extreme, the presence of that dis-ease energy causes tissue to become so over-traumatized that it falls apart. And when you apply forgiveness to the energetic patterns that cause the disease in the first place, and the diseases are things like hatred and fear and rage and guilt and grief. Now, somebody might say, well, Michael, it's obvious you don't understand. There are these bugs, these bacteria, these viruses. That's what the problem is. Well, let's look at the logic of that. Let's imagine I have a 1 acre field here in front of the house. And let's imagine it's a nice, warm, sunny day. It's 98.6. It would be nice if it were a little warmer today. It was in the 20s when we got up this morning. Let's imagine it's 98.6, and I've got an acre there, and I rope off 1 acre way off in the far corner, and I rope off 1 acre up here in the front corner of the lot. And I go and count how many bugs, how many viruses, how many creepy crawly things, how many bacteria, how many, buzzards there are hanging around this square foot compared to that. And, the count's probably going to be pretty much the same. If I take a dead rabbit and put it on the square foot way over on the other side there and leave it there for a couple of days at 98.6, and I go back and I look to see if there's an elevated count of bacteria, virus, bugs, and buzzards, will there be somewhere on the lot an elevated count? Absolutely. 100% of the time, where is that elevated count going to be? It's going to be where the flesh is decaying, where there's a weakened tissue structure that makes for a food supply that allows those things to multiply. If you feed them, they will come. The most damaging thing you can do to your tissue structure is stand in a space of hostility, stand in a space of fear, stand in a space of rage, grief, pain, and trauma. Why? Because our tissue structure is warning us of the quality of energy that we're engaging in. Now, we've gotten to the point where we've got it all down to it's those bugs' fault. I'm going to offer that's just not true. I have, over the last few decades, had a couple of infections, and I have used an antibiotic. Other than that, as Jeanie says, she's not on drugs. I haven't had a drug in my body in over half a century. Aside from, yes, I have had a couple of tooth infections. Unfortunately, when I was a kid, I guess my parents didn't know, and I sure didn't know that sucking on that those fluids that come in those red cans that are filled with sugar and phosphoric acid and caffeine, that they're not healthy for teeth. And I wish I'd known that when I was a kid. I wish I'd understood that, but I didn't. But other than that, it's been 50 years. Why are some people on all those drugs and some people aren't? I'd offer because some people choose to be responsible for what's going on inside of them, and when they engage in an energy that causes them pain. Now, if you find yourself raging and that night you happen to have a lot of pain and turmoil and trauma, you might say to yourself, I wonder if that's a toxic energy. I wonder if that's a disease I'm engaging in. I've noticed that every time I engage in it, I have pain. Maybe there's a link there. Maybe I should look into and put an end to the rage or the fear or the sadness or the grief or the pain. And if you do, you'll find that your symptoms go away. It's pretty awesome. But if you let those things go on to the point where they become a threat to your physiology, then there's going to be problems. So remembering that the solution, as presented 2,000 years ago, lies in forgiveness. Now, sadly, there's a really deeply flawed substitute for forgiveness in the culture. And it's almost universally believed to be this Greek trickery that if I let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me, then I've forgiven. And that's a fraud. Forgiveness is a tool that's designed to collapse pained perception, which is a product of errant thought, and free ourselves from the constructs that reflect, that are a product, a projection of the unhealed thoughts, wounds, and entanglements of the past. Now, if there's a conversation that remotely resembles or suggests that you forgive them, him, her, or yourself, please be aware there's nothing about forgiveness in that conversation. You remember in the scriptures it says there come a time when the whole world will be fooled. Well, I've spent, if you've been listening to this radio show, you probably can't count how many times we've used the word forgiveness in the last, we're going on 11 years, we're into our 11th year now. And I can't tell you how many people, I've talked till I'm blue in the face about forgiveness, and they'll turn around and say, yeah, well, I forgave them. They'll still do that. I forgave myself. If there's a conversation about letting somebody else off the hook for what's happening inside of you, remember, you're not talking about forgiveness. That conversation is about pardoning. So people almost universally have been fooled into this deeply flawed substitute for forgiveness, a conversation about pardoning, which has become the main distraction of fraud that inhibits actual forgiveness. Or if you let someone, yourself or somebody else, off the hook for some perceived offense and think you've forgiven, then you will never do the work of actual forgiveness. Anybody that you talk to in the world. I can remember when I was writing my book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again, and understanding this idea of forgiveness, I went and spent a couple of days at I don't remember what store it was, one of the major bookstores. And I just sat there and I read and I read and I read, and I looked at everything in their books, inventory, that spoke about forgiveness, religious, whether it's a rabbi or a priest or a minister or psychiatrist, what have you. And ultimately, every one of them, every one of them, sooner or later, if they were talking about the stories about forgiveness that they were sharing, you'll hear them say to their client, if anybody ever says this to you and tell you they're doing forgiveness, stop them mid-sentence and take another track. Because the conversation always came down to, they'd ask the client if they were telling a story about healing and therapy, the conversation always came down to, well, how did that make you feel? When they did that, how did that make you feel? That's a story about total projection. And then, are you willing to let them off the hook for that? Are you willing to forgive them? Folks, that's a totally and completely errant conversation. And if you do that and think you've forgiven, then there's not going to be any forgiveness done. The widespread belief that pardoning is forgiveness must be eradicated in order to enter into the experience of actual forgiveness. To experience true forgiveness, you must be prepared to drop what you thought you knew and enter totally into a new, entirely different mental landscape. True forgiveness does not look anything like what you've learned from the world of perception. And remember, the Course in Miracles talks about, perception is the world you made up to take the place of what the Creator gave you in creation. Course calls those the mechanisms of illusion, where perception was born. You've got to be willing to give that up and function out of a new mind, invite a new mind into you. that mind in the ancient teachings and disconnect anything to do with theology from this comment, please. This is not a theological statement that I'm making. It has nothing whatsoever to do with religion or theology. Forgiveness is a tool for removing thought disorders from the mind. It's not about being let off the hook. Well, once you understand true forgiveness, it's silly to even think about asking for, wanting, or granting forgiveness to yourself or someone else. Pardon if you choose, that's great, but call it what it is. And then, having pardoned, go on and do the work of actual forgiveness. False perception would teach you that if you pardon another, you've forgiven, and need not fulfill one of the prerequisites the Course speaks about. And this one confuses people who are kind of wanting to do a spiritual bypass and make everything lovey-dovey. The Course says you must look upon your hatred and realize its full extent. That's a requirement of true forgiveness. So pardoning is a spiritual bypass. It's convinced the world. And it's the ego's universal solution. If I could just figure this out, to let go of trying to figure it out and understand that you can forgive it. So this absolutely amazing tapestry, this tool of forgiveness that Yeshua created 2,000 years ago, will unfold as you put it to work in your life. Now you can go to our, if you're not using the tool, and the resistance to using the tool of forgiveness is monumental for most people. And my best understanding of that is because when we actually put the pen to the paper and actually engage in forgiveness, it moves, literally what it does is it collapses perception, and you get to look at the raw, whatever's under the surface, energetic patterns. People don't want to do that. Going back to the lesson, and if you haven't watched it, you might go to our YouTube channel. If you go to whyagain.org, you can do the forgiveness process right there, live on the site. You can also look at the social media links, and there's a YouTube button there, and the YouTube channel is Michael Ryce, R-Y-C-E. And if you go there, there are dozens of videos that you can watch to take you out of this world of false perception, support you in understanding the tool. The main one I'd invite you to look at is one that's entitled, What is the World? It's about a 33-minute video. It explains how the mind generates literally a whole world that we think we see outside of us that's actually inside of us, and then how to apply forgiveness so that that world collapses. And if you go to that lesson in the Course, What is the World? The first sentence explains it all. It says the world is false perception. Perception, the Course says, is a skill we made up to take the place of the actuality of what is actually here. And what forgiveness does is it collapses the constructs of the mind that are false. You can go to our website, or pardon me, you can go to your app store on your phone. If you type in the words Heartland, H-E-A-R-T-L-A-N-D, one word, Aramaic, A-R-A-M-A-I-C, forgiveness, you'll be looking at the world's only forgiveness app. Jeanie has done an awesome job at putting that together to just serve so deeply to so many places that will support you in that learning. It's an awesome piece of work. So hostility and fear are markers that the mind is engaging in an energy that's based in corrupt data, and whatever the mind is showing, whatever the construct of the mind is, the perception generated by the mind is false. Now, the error of substituting pardoning, I'll let you off the hook for what's going on inside of me. When you substitute pardoning for forgiveness, you can hold on to that one, because you can just say, oh, well, I forgave them because they enraged me. And when you do that, you can keep playing in that realm of generated perception that's based in falsity. You've got to disengage completely from that world and enter into an entirely new world. It's a step that happens gradually. It isn't an overnight thing. With the use of actual figure, and this will usually be at first flashes of it. Like you'll be rolling along, and you're in your normal disturbed state, that's the state most of the world lives in, and all of a sudden, you might find you do a worksheet one day, and the next day, all of a sudden, you wake up and you're like, "Wow, I feel really great." That's like, I can actually feel the structure of love within my form. And over time, those flashes will become more and more extended. Now, the old perceptual constructs are going to tend to come back. They'll come back online with their fear and hostility-based thought disorders. That state of peace, that state of connectedness can when hostility or fear, when thought disorders start to move in the structure and generate constructs of how the problem's out there, using corrupt data, using hostility or fear. It's kind of like a thief in the night takes that away. It's like, oh, well, I guess it must have been false. No. What happened is that state where you're connected and living as the presence of love is your natural, normal state. Pardon me, your natural state. It may not be your norm. And when you load goals that resonate hostility and fear-based perception, again, like a thief in the night, that state of peace can be snatched away. And it's kind of difficult for the self that's generated in the perceptual mind, the self that's based in thought disorders, usually based on a power person interaction. It's hard for that self to comprehend a world of total, complete connectedness and bliss exists. It's beyond that part of the mind's imagining. And as one does the work of forgiveness, and it's almost imperceptibly, love as our natural state of being comes into experience on deeper and deeper levels. All wounds and thought disorders must be raised to awareness. And those wounds or assaults are often multi-generational. And those things, when active, block the experience of ourselves as love. And it tends to run life. Carl Jung said it this way: until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. Remember, our definition of life is love flowing through a cell. Removal of assault energy creates an opening that facilitates the flow of light and love in every instant of your life and every cell in your structure. The errant thoughts that I made up along the way from my own experience and the thought disorders that I've learned or inherited from my culture and my past generations must be forgiven. And by doing so, we're liberated from those things that snatch away what for many people is the fleeting experience of themselves as love. And so many live in a world where they can't even imagine that love could possibly be present, especially in the circumstance that I'm in. And yet it's not the circumstance. It is perception that tells us that the circumstance is the problem. And again, what forgiveness does is it collapses that world of perception and gives you a taste of the truth of yourself as love, until that becomes the desirable habit. Now, of course, everybody would say, yep, I want that tomorrow. But you see, if you come from a long line of deniers, you come from, and just, take a look back, look at your generations. If on a scale of 1 to 10, you were to rate the level of happiness and functioning as love compared to the level of hostility and fear on a scale of 1 to 10, if you look at both of your parents, if you looked at your grandparents, if you looked at your great-grandparents, if you look at aunts, uncles, cousins, and you look at the level of hostility and fear they live in, that average will be that will represent the influences that have brought you to the collection of mind energy that you hold, out of which you generate that world of perception for yourself. Forgiveness is liberation from that image-making capability of the mind. When you address and remove the thought disorders that underlie its function. Although it appears that we see a whole world outside of us, the truth is, remember, we've never seen anything with our eyes. Our seeing is nothing but a world constructed by our minds. Seeing happens in the mind, not in the eyes. And with that seeing, I've been fooled into thinking that what I see is true and the problem's outside of me. Here's the rub. If the problem were outside of you, you would be feeling just fine. But if you're feeling hostility, fear, something other than the presence of love, it will be because there are energetic patterns moving you that rob you of that feeling. Forgiveness collapses all of that and gives you the chance to bring active present love into your experience, into your perceptual world, to bring dissolution of what might be 1,000 generations of hostility and fear. And that's the long and short of what this whole process of forgiveness is about. And we're delighted to be here having the conversation with you. And if that makes sense and it arouses a question for you, or if it doesn't make sense and it arouses a question for you, please,
you have a hand up.
Let's have a conversation. Well, then let's say hello.
I believe it's Joan, 205. You're on the air.
Well, young lady,
yes,
where have you been?
Good.
Hey there. I've been getting concerned about you.
It's good to hear your voices.
Well, it's good to hear yours, too.
Thank you. So it's so great to hear this lesson again, Michael.
Why is this happening to you again?
Yes. The lesson that nothing outside of me can upset me.
It's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's so easy to forget because it is so prevalent in our culture.
You're right on there.
And not easy to teach somebody what you just taught. Because as you say, you have to build the brain cells if it's something you've never heard of before. it takes a while to grasp it. I have had a trigger. My son and his wife have a condo on Orange Beach, which is right at the end of Alabama going into Florida. And,
right.
On Memorial Day weekend, my son from D.C. and his housemate and her sister and her sister's daughter came down here to the beach to be with David and his family. And they didn't invite me. Well, I got really upset. It triggered something, very painful in me. And I was caught up in it for at least a couple of weeks before I remembered there's nothing out there that can upset me. It's something in here. And so I did some worksheets and did journaling. And those worksheets are just magic, really. It's like, I can't tell you what shifted. I just know the pain went away. And it happened again at Labor Day, and it's going to happen in a couple of weeks. And at first, I get triggered again, but it doesn't take me as long to get in there and do the work. And it doesn't take me as long to remember. There's nothing out there that can upset me. It's just such an exquisite piece of work. And when I look at that worksheet and think about every line of that worksheet has a book behind it, basically. It's just so deep. And yet, if you just do the worksheet, you don't have to know all about, all the stuff that it took to develop it. Just do the worksheet. So
I'm with you.
I'm going to the beach on Thursday for 5 days, and I'm taking wake-up sheets and a notebook for journaling. I've forgotten what we call our journaling. It's directed journaling, I know, but those sentences that you give us, what are they called?
The mind shifters.
Yes, mind shifters.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to having, just my sister and I will be there together for 3 days. And then my son and his children will come over from Mobile for the weekend.
Right.
So
I'm glad, Joan. Yeah, it sounds awesome, and I'm delighted that you're remembering, putting the tools to work. There's that quote that comes from, I think it's from Jeremiah, and it talks about the Creator's talking and saying, I know the thoughts I think toward you, the Creator saying, thoughts of peace, not of evil. And, and evil, of course, being, missing the target altogether, that's the plan. And everything is designed to give us the opportunity to grasp that. And the first thing we need to do to be able to receive that, to work through the generational patterns that go, that's a lie. This isn't being done for my benefit. The Course talks about, everything the Creator has planned for us is for our benefit. And even when the good, the bad, and the ugly show up, it's our opportunity as creative beings to change our minds.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not a skill that, is common in the world.
Not at all. Not at all.
So I'm delighted.
I've become very aware also of this generational passing on of dysfunctional thought patterns. I used to tell everybody when they would say, David sure does get upset about so-and-so, and I'd say, well, David would rather be right than happy. And then after studying with you, I didn't say that too much anymore, Michael, because I realized that I had a lot of that also. It's like I couldn't get on to the forgiveness work of cleaning out my dysfunctional thought patterns because I would keep thinking, but it's not right for them to treat me this way. And that would keep me from doing the work.
I'm with you. And you know what? You could be totally right that it's not right for them to treat you that way, but that's still not the cause of your pain.
Exactly.
To the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow.
Yeah.
And when we're willing to open and go there, it's just amazing what we can work through.
Right. Well, how's the little girl? How old is she now?
She's about 3.5 and absolutely awesome. Aria Rain. She's here today. And were you on the show when I spoke about the download I got a few days ago?
No.
Around her? Well, I was awakened about 4 a.m. I've been working on a Course in Miracles article, and I was awakened with some thoughts to download, and I got up and I went through the living room and sat down and started to write. And in the middle of that writing, it just stopped like mid-sentence, and this whole flood of understanding on a whole new level, something that Aria for 3.5 years has been teaching me was what my job was as a grandfather, and of course with my kids was as a father, which I sort of knew when they were kids. I wish I'd known it as well then as I do now. But this whole different piece came in about how, the tendency is, most parents have goals for their children, what they want their children to do and be, and all of that, how they're supposed to act. And the visualization came of, that the parent who has all of that for the child has kind of created a mold which they want to pour their child into.
Yeah.
And that if we create a mold that we want to pour our child into, then we're just going to pass on our deficiencies to them. But that what we really need to do is to recognize that at the instant of their coming into existence, they were whole and complete.
Yeah.
And we don't need to have a mold for them. What we really need to do is just to be the space that supports them coming in as the wholeness that they are and creating their own expression of being. And it was just a really sweet new level of, and it's difficult to put into words, but anyway, it was just a really sweet download on what the task is. And
right, I love the celebration that Unity has for new babies. A lot of it's taken from Cahill Gibran and what he has to say about the parent,
about children.
Relationship.
It's powerful. Definitely. So how are your little grandbabies?
They're wonderful. I'm going to send you and Jeanie this little a text message from my granddaughter, and it has a little ghost, and the ghost talking, and it's just adorable.
Oh, please do.
I will. It's just fantastic.
Sweet. That's awesome. Well, it's a delight to hear your voice. You've gotten a couple of calls from me, and I hadn't heard back. It's like, gee, I hope everything's okay with Joan. So I'm delighted to hear your voice and to know that everything is well in your world. And we'll look forward to the next time we get to be face to face.
I do too. I really look forward to that. There
Cool.
was something else I was going to tell you about. Oh, well, I can't think of it.
I'll breathe with you for a moment while you let it come up to the surface.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm also sending you a link from the Codependence Intensive on, when you talk about the generational healing, the piece of work that Magda did that was so profound. And that might be a nice reminder of possibilities for embracing those generational patterns and moving through them. I just texted it to you.
Right. Yeah, that's wonderful. I remember that.
It was powerful, and I've listened to it a couple of times since, and I find it to be very inspirational to just really be with the energy that she put into that explanation and space.
How's Grandpa?
He's still in a rehab center. Mentally, about the last week or so, I think that the COVID really created a fog, and he was lost for several weeks. But mentally, he's come back pretty much to where he was before COVID. And unfortunately, they pretty much left him in a bed for 10 days, and at 89, if you don't move for 10 days, things don't move. And he hasn't walked since. He's, they've been doing some therapy with him, and, they have a device where you kind of, it lifts you by your arms. And so he's taken some, significant steps that way. But at this point, his legs are not carrying his body weight. With that jack, he can sort of walk, but he hasn't done that. And actually, Jeanie and I spent a couple hours with him yesterday, and we were talking with him about what he needs to do. And afterward, our conversation was, it's looking, as we get farther and farther away, it's been 2 months now almost, it's looking like he may not do that he may not have the will and or the physiological capability to do that. And unfortunately, if he doesn't, then, it's not, we can't handle him here at home. And so we're canceled the thought. We're holding the space for something different to happen, for a miracle, but it's looking like we might have to find a long-term care facility for him. So he's got about another.
Did he go into the hospital with COVID?
Yeah, he went. We couldn't keep his oxygen level up. The three of us got it. We couldn't keep his oxygen level up, and so because we had COVID, we couldn't take him in. So we had an ambulance come pick him up, and with the use of his walker, he walked across 2 rooms. He walked up 6 steps and out onto the deck and got onto the gurney to be taken to the ambulance. But after 10 days in the hospital, he hasn't walked since.
Yeah.
So we're breathing with him. We're going in. And say again?
I'll be holding space for him, for all
Thank
of
you.
you.
Thank you very, very deeply. We appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
So has that other thought come forward yet?
Oh, that I was going to ask about Grandpa.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then it's a delight to talk with you. I'm glad things are well in your world, and lots of love and blessings.
To you too. Bye-bye.
All right. All right. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody else in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet. Maybe announce this coming Saturday is our monthly Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing.
Yes.
We only have 3 minutes left of the show.
Right, okay. So this is what? 1, 2, 3. This will be number 5, the 5th month we've done that? 4th. Anyway, whatever it is, we've got a 1-year program. Well, actually, it looks like it's going to be a perpetual program, but we started out with 1 year of once a month doing Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing via Zoom. When we did we weren't sure how well the Still Point was going to work doing it on Zoom, but remotely. But we found it's been extremely effective, and actually, the first one we did outside of an intensive was so powerful that I actually turned the workshop over to Jeanie for a while, and I went to breathe. And it was really quite awesome to. I've never worked with a group like in 40-some years of doing Still Point work with people. I've never seen everybody in the group go into Still Point at once, and that's what happened in that Saturday workshop. And so we chose to do a 1-year program, and people can participate and just do 1 month if you're interested in that, or we've got a 3-month package people can do, or do the whole year. And of course, the price gets progressively less if you choose to do the cost of Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing. We do a set of videos that we send you to working with Mind Shifters, then a Saturday workshop, and then a Wednesday evening where we do Q&A and cover any more questions. And so if you're interested in participating in any of that.
On Tuesday evening.
On Tuesday. Oh, that's right. We changed it from Wednesday. My mind keeps going back to Tuesday, but yeah, it's keeps going back to Wednesday, which was the original. But yeah, we shifted it. It worked better for the whole group to do Tuesday, so 7 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're interested in that, you could drop me a note if you have my phone number or Jeanie, or you could drop Jeanie an email, jeanie@whyagain.org, jeanie@whyagain.org, and make sure to put your phone number in there, and I'll touch in with you if you're interested in participating and explain how the program works. And if you want to join us, that'd be awesome. Other than that, we hold space for you to have best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world, and blessings. Bye-bye.